So is your MT-07 making sort of a grinding sound when you're decelerating, still in gear, with the clutch out? Let's take a look at it and see what it sounds like, and then we'll see about fixing it. So I got my MT-07, bought it brand new. It's a 2022, and I was riding it. Let's say I rode it for about 100 miles, all in one ride because I was so excited that I got my new bike. But anyway, on my second ride, I noticed that when I was decelerating, clutch out, I was getting a grinding kind of sound, which is usually indicative of something going on with your chain, most likely too much slack in your chain. As you can see, I have a few other bikes besides my MT-07. Man, that's a pretty bike. I have a V-Strom 1000 that I ride, and then what I rode today to work was my KLR 650. So my MT-07 is my third and newest bike. Man, I can't get over how pretty it is. Look at that. But anyway, like I said, when I took it from the dealer, bought it brand new, there was no noise, no noticeable noise, because I mean, I would know. I listen to my bikes pretty attentively. It wasn't until probably after about 110 miles that I realized or heard that grinding sound. So if you have a brand new one and you have a grinding sound, and you're like, oh, it's brand new, it's probably nothing. You probably want to check your chain tension. The manual calls for a measurement of between 2 and 2.2 inches measured from the middle of the bottom, from the middle of the chain to the chain guard on the bottom of your swing arm. So you kind of press down with your finger, and I'll try my best to show this. I'm not a professional YouTuber, but I did want to make this video for awareness. Just because your bike is brand new, you just picked it up from the dealer, doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to come with no issues until you take it for your first service. You're going to have to check for things. And I didn't check it when I took it. When I took delivery of it, it was late in the day. Matter of fact, the dealer was already closed. I got to the dealership a little late, and it was a Saturday. So I really didn't do my due diligence. I kind of was excited. I jumped on the bike and took off. I didn't do my usual checks. You know, normally I would have checked the oil, checked the chain tension, just, you know, your standard inspection before you ride. I would normally have done that, but I didn't this time because, like I said, it was late in the day. Dealership was closing, and I was excited, and I was like, ah, to hell with it. But it's just making this video for your awareness. Just because it's brand new and it's from the dealer doesn't mean it's going to have zero issues. And this is not the bike's fault. This is whoever put the bike together. And I'm not saying the chain was loose when I took delivery of the bike. It may have been within spec, and during my first 100 miles, you know, it may have stretched a little bit. But anywho, we'll get on with the process of measuring the slack and then adjusting if necessary, which I'm going to bet that it's probably going to need some tightening. We'll see. Now again, I apologize, I'm not a professional YouTuber, so you can spare me the comments on the sound or video quality, whatever. But anyway, the way you're going to measure this, well, first of all, let's just assume that it's going to need to be tightened. You're going to break torque on your lock nut. You're going to break torque on your axle nut. There's 2 lock nuts, one on each side. There you go. You see that one? You see that one? It's called a lock nut. The reason it's called a lock nut is because it runs down to this nut, which is your actual adjustment nut, and it keeps it from backing out. That's why it's called a lock nut. That's how it works. This nut runs down and hits that nut, keeps it from moving. So once you got your adjustment where you want it, it stays that way and doesn't back out while you're riding. Of course, this is your axle nut. Self-explanatory. You're going to break torque on this and make it loose to where your wheel can slide back and forth however you need it to. Word of advice, I've seen a couple of videos where people are breaking torque with their torque wrench. Don't do that. Use a breaker bar. That's why they're called a breaker bar, because we use them to break torque. You don't use a torque wrench to break torque. That's Tools 101. So you will need a torque wrench, by the way. This nut, the torque spec on this is 77 foot-pounds. That's as per the manual. This is a 2022 MT-07, and as per the owner's manual, this nut gets torqued to 77 foot-pounds. And the way we're going to measure the slack in the chain. All right. Now look, I only have 2 hands, and I don't have a decent tripod to hold this camera, so I'm just going to kind of show you where you should be measuring from. So you're measuring from the bottom of this chain guard right here. So right here is your measuring point on the swing arm. On the chain, you're going to be measuring to the center of the chain, which is pretty much the rivets. So you're not measuring to the top of the chain, you're not measuring to the bottom of the chain, you're measuring to the center. So you're what I would call X dimension. In the owner's manual, it's marked A, but in the airplane world, we call this an X dimension. But anyway, your X dimension is going to be from the bottom of this to the center of your chain. And this is in your owner's manual. So let's go here. So right now, as it sits with no pressure on the chain, just sitting static, what we got here, just a touch under 2 1/4 inches. So what I need to look in the owner's manuals to see if it calls for you to press down on it. As you can see, I'm just not digging the looseness of this chain. But if I were to press down, like I said, I don't have enough hands, but when I press down on the chain, you know, we're easily 2 1/2 inches. So I'm going to check the owner's manual right now and see if it calls for me to do this. Put pressure, downward pressure on the chain. I can't remember, so I'm going to look and we'll get back to it. So yeah, the owner's manual does say to push down on the chain. I figured that was the case, but I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to give bad information. I'll throw the chain slack measurement instructions straight from the owner's manual up right now. All right, now you've got to look at the chain slack measurement instructions. And when I follow those instructions, I apologize, I don't have a tripod. And I got 2 hands, I can't hold the tape measure. I guess I can try. Anyway, take my word for it. When I used the technique and the instructions that the owner's manual tells you to use, I came out with a measurement of almost 2 3/4 inches. So my chain is way too slack, which is what I suspect is causing that grinding noise when I'm decelerating. The chain's probably riding on this upper chain guard right here. See, I put my light on it. And probably rubbing and causing that grinding sound. Not a big deal. It would be if you didn't do anything about it. It would become a big deal. But we'll go ahead and adjust this chain and take it for a spin. And just for reference, oh man, this is terrible. I'm terrible at this YouTube stuff, so y'all just, you know, bear with me. You want to pay attention before you get started. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a picture. You really don't need to. It's just I do everything. I'm overkill on everything. You just watch when you're adjusting it. Make sure that whatever tick mark you're at on this side, make sure you're at the same tick mark on the other side. Otherwise, obviously, your wheel would be, it'll be tilted. Not tilted. Y'all know what I'm saying. It ain't gonna be straight, okay? So we'll go ahead and get cracking and adjust this chain, get it in spec, go for a quick ride up the road and see if my grinding has at least subsided. From what I understand on these bikes, these MT-07s, some that grinding sound is going to be normal even after the chain's adjusted, but we'll see what our results are. You know what they say, your results may vary, so we'll I don't know how much of the chain adjustment that I'm going to film. I mean, like I said, you're going to break torque on your lock nut. That's this guy, on both sides. Then you're going to break torque on your axle nut, and you're going to back that off. Now you're going to take it all the way off. Now you're just going to loosen it to where this wheel can slide forward and aft. Once it's loose, then you're going to tighten clockwise on this nut right here, not the lock nut, because that'll be backed off. You're going to go on your adjustment nut, and to tighten the chain, you're going to go clockwise. To loosen the chain, you're going to go counterclockwise. So we'll do that. I'll try to record some of it for you. There's plenty of videos out there that will show you this process. I'm just more doing this because this is a brand new bike. That's when I'm doing it for awareness for other folks who just bought a brand new bike and they hear a grinding noise on deceleration. All right, these nuts right here are 12 millimeter. Your axle nut is a 27 millimeter. This is a breaker bar. Do not use a torque wrench to break torque. So first we'll break torque on these guys, and you're going to want to put one wrench here so this guy doesn't move, and then your other wrench on the lock nut. And my hand is blocking the view. I'm sorry. God, I suck at this. Let's move you all around to this side. So I got this wrench on the actual adjustment nut. This wrench is on the adjustment nut. This wrench right here is on the lock nut. So while I'm going to hold this in place while I break torque on the lock nut. I'm just going to back the lock nut off. So as you can see, the actual adjustment nut stayed in place. Lock nut is backed off. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm not going to film it for you because it's literally exactly the same. You can do the same thing. You don't want this guy to move because it's just going to make it easier when you go to adjust it. You can do like half turns, bam, you know, bam. So that's why you hold this one, you know, keep it in place while you back off your lock nut. All right, now we're going to break torque on the axle nut. Now, I didn't have a 27 millimeter socket other than my impact socket. Obviously, I'm not going to use an impact gun on this, but it's 27 millimeters. And you're going to brake torque on this. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So I'm going to go ahead and brake torque. Don't be scared of the sounds that it makes. You're just backing this nut off. You ain't breaking anything. And the bike has to be on the side stand that the manual calls for. So you don't have to jack up the bike. Keep it on the side stand. Back off a little bit more. A little bit of movement on that guy. That ought to be enough. I don't know how any of this is going to look on the video because I ain't watching it. So now I'm going to be paying attention to those tick marks. So I am showing, is that about the third tick mark? And now we're going to start moving the wheel back. We're going to do that by taking your adjustment nut. I'm going to do a half a turn and another half turn. That's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to do little increments. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Half turn. And another half turn. Now, as you can see, well, or not, again, this probably isn't coming out good, but you can see that it's moved. It's moved back a bit. So we're almost a full tick mark now from where it was. Just off of 2 half turns, obviously equals a full turn. So now I'm going to check my chain tension based off of that adjustment. All right, so my chain is where it needs to be. It's at just over 2 inches as per the measurement that the owner's manual calls for. And so I started at about the 3rd tick mark, and after adjustment, I'm at the 4th one. So that's how far out I went. When you do this, you want to do it in small increments, because if you get it too tight, then you have to run the wheel back in. But that's all it took. It was just 1 tick mark off on both sides. Now we will tighten the axle nut back up, torque it to 77 foot-pounds, run the lock nuts down, tighten everything back up, we're good to go. 77 foot-pounds. If you don't know how to set a torque wrench to 77 foot-pounds, then I recommend taking this to a Yamaha dealer and let the dealer do this for you. Because if you can't set a torque wrench, you don't have any knowledge of basic tools, probably shouldn't be doing this on your own. You're just gonna go, I have a click type torque wrench. There you go, 77. Boom. Dunsky. All right, so these are the tools that you're gonna need. You're gonna need 2 12mm wrenches. That's so you can hold the adjustment nut while you're loosening and tightening the lock nut. You're gonna need a torque wrench that goes to 77 foot-pounds. You're gonna need a 27mm socket. I didn't have a normal chrome socket. I had to use an impact socket, but that's all right. And you're gonna need a breaker bar to break torque on that axle nut. The longer the better, because the longer it is, the more leverage you get, the easier it'll be to break torque. Do not break torque with this guy. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to see people on YouTube doing it. I ain't trying to talk bad about anybody, but that's not a good practice to be breaking torque with a torque wrench. You want to do that with your breaker bar. All right. Once again, in review, back off your lock nut. Loosen, oh, this sucks. All right, so back off your lock nut, loosen your axle nut, and then you're gonna adjust your adjustment nut here. In for tighter, out for looser chain. And that's about it, man. Just a few basic hand tools, and I was trying to film and do this, and it still only took me, I don't know, 15 minutes. And that's trying to film and, I don't know, trying to help you guys out. But again, I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm kind of shitty at this. And I was just doing this on a whim, not prepared at all. So, you get what you get, don't pitch a fit, right? All right, we have, wind here. So we have remedied the grinding noise. We tightened the chain. Like I said, it was one tick mark back is the adjustment that I made. It put the chain right where the owner's manual says it should be, and that grinding noise on deceleration gone. So hopefully this helps you out with your grinding noise, if that's something that you're dealing with. Don't worry, it's nothing major. You just need to tighten your chain. Even if it's a brand new bike, you just got it from the dealer, you only ridden it 100 miles or so. As you can see with my bike, it can happen. Your chain goes out of adjustment, and you just need to tighten it up. No big deal, not a hard job by any stretch of the imagination. So one tick mark is all it took. Grinding noise gone, good to go. Hope this helps.